The golden cage love, they say, arrives when you least expect it. For Rebecca Laurent, it crashed into her life like a summer storm on an ordinary Tuesday evening, forever altering the trajectory of her quiet existence. She had been arranging champagne flutes behind the marble bar of Celestial Heights, the city's most exclusive rooftop restaurant, when Damien Cross first walked through the glass doors. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that spoke of old money and new power, he moved through the space as if he owned it. Later, she would learn that he did own it, along with half the commercial real estate in Manhattan. But that night, all she saw was a man whose dark eyes seemed to hold entire universes of secrets, and when those eyes found hers across the crowded room, something fundamental shifted inside her chest. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of impossible romance. Private jets to Paris for dinner, weekend retreats to his estate in the Hamptons, mornings waking up to find rare orchids on her pillow with handwritten notes in his elegant script. Damien pursued her with an intensity that was both thrilling and overwhelming, sweeping away every rational objection she raised about their different worlds. He was 38, she was 26. He commanded boardrooms and influenced politicians. She mixed drinks and studied art history at community college. None of it mattered to him, he insisted. She was his oasis in a desert of shallow connections, his chance at genuine happiness after years of empty relationships. Within 4 months, a diamond ring appeared during a sunset proposal on his yacht, and Rebecca found herself saying yes before her mind could catch up with her heart. Now, 8 months into their engagement, she stood in the penthouse they shared, staring at her reflection in the floor-length mirror of their bedroom. The silver gown Damien had selected for tonight's celebration hugged her slender frame perfectly, custom-made by a designer whose name she still struggled to pronounce correctly. Her auburn hair had been styled into soft waves by a professional who had arrived at dawn, and the sapphire necklace circling her throat probably cost more than her mother made in a year as a nurse. She looked like someone else entirely, a polished, stranger playing dress-up in a life that still felt borrowed. The engagement celebration was Damien's idea, naturally. Everything in their life together was his idea, though he presented each decision so lovingly that Rebecca rarely noticed she was simply agreeing rather than choosing. Tonight would officially announce their upcoming wedding to his business associates, political connections, and the cream of New York society. 200 guests, a live orchestra, catering by the city's most sought-after chef. Rebecca had wanted something smaller, more intimate, but Damien explained that their union meant more than just personal happiness. It represented the joining of families, the creation of alliances, the strengthening of bonds that would benefit everyone in their circle. How could she argue with that? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Catherine, Damien's sister, entered without waiting for a response. At 35, she possessed the same commanding presence as her brother, though her warmth toward Rebecca had been genuine from their first meeting. She was carrying 2 glasses of wine, offering one to Rebecca with a knowing smile. "You look like you're preparing for battle rather than a party," Catherine observed, settling onto the velvet chaise near the window. Her emerald dress complemented her dark hair, which she wore pulled back in a severe but elegant bun. "Is it the crowd that has you nervous or something else?" Rebecca accepted the wine gratefully, taking a small sip before responding. "Just the usual pre-event jitters, I suppose. Your brother knows how to throw an intimidating gathering." Catherine studied her for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "My brother knows how to do many things. The question is whether you know what you're getting into with him." The words could have sounded like a warning, but her tone remained gentle, almost sisterly. "Damien loves you, Rebecca. I've never seen him this invested in anyone, but our family comes with complications. You should know that going forward." Before Rebecca could probe deeper into that cryptic statement, Damien himself appeared in the doorway. He dismissed Catherine with a subtle gesture that somehow conveyed both affection and dismissal, then crossed to where Rebecca stood. His hand settled on her shoulders as he examined her reflection in the mirror, his expression one of proprietary satisfaction. "Perfect," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You look absolutely perfect, my beautiful bride-to-be. Are you ready to face our guests?" The ballroom of the Cross Hotel glittered with old money and new ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the assembled crowd, reflecting off champagne flutes and designer jewelry. Rebecca descended the curved staircase on Damien's arm, acutely aware of the weight of curious stares tracking her movement. She recognized some faces from newspaper society pages, others from the political fundraisers Damien occasionally dragged her to. Most were strangers united only by their connection to the man beside her and their desire to be seen in his orbit. Damien worked the room with practiced ease, introducing Rebecca to senators and CEOs, art collectors, and venture capitalists. She smiled until her cheeks ached, made small talk about wedding plans she barely felt invested in, and accepted congratulations from people whose names she would never remember. Through it all, Damien's hand remained at the small of her back, a constant presence that was both comforting and confining. She was his prize tonight, his achievement, proof that even the untouchable Damien Cross could find something pure and uncorrupted to claim as his own. The speeches began after dinner, a parade of toasts that veered between genuine affection and calculated flattery. Catherine spoke beautifully about family and new beginnings. Damien's business partner, an older man named Harold Winters, made jokes about confirmed bachelors finally meeting their match. Rebecca smiled through it all, her face starting to hurt from the constant performance of happiness. She did love Damien, didn't she? He had transformed her life, lifted her from obscurity into this glittering world of possibility. So why did she sometimes feel like she was slowly disappearing, her edges smoothed away until she fit perfectly into the space he had carved out for her? Damien was midway through his own speech, something eloquent about finding unexpected treasure in unlikely places when the ballroom doors opened with sudden force. The music stuttered to a halt. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every head turned toward the entrance where a woman stood framed by the doorway like an actress making a dramatic stage entrance. She was stunning in a way that went beyond mere beauty. Her black hair fell in a sleek curtain past her shoulders. Her red dress clung to curves that included an unmistakable pregnancy bump, and her dark eyes scanned the room with the confidence of someone who knew exactly the chaos she was about to unleash. Rebecca felt Damien go rigid beside her, his hand tightening painfully on her waist. The champagne glass in his other hand trembled slightly before he set it down with careful control. Around them, the silence stretched taut as a wire, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. The woman's gaze finally found Damien's, and a small, knowing smile curved her lips. "Hello, darling," she said, her voice carrying easily across the frozen ballroom. "Did you really think you could start a new life without dealing with the old one first?" Catherine appeared suddenly at Rebecca's other side, her face pale beneath her makeup. "That's Natasha," she whispered urgently. "Damien's wife. Ex-wife, I mean. The divorce was finalized 2 years ago." Rebecca's mind struggled to process this information. Wife. Ex-wife. Another detail about Damien's past that had somehow never come up in their whirlwind romance. She turned to look at him, but his attention remained fixed on the woman in red, his expression unreadable. "Natasha," he said, his voice admirably steady despite the tension radiating through his body. "This is neither the time nor the place for whatever drama you've planned." Natasha laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "Drama?" She placed a protective hand over her swollen belly, the gesture deliberate and pointed. "I prefer to call it truth, Damien. Something you've never been particularly comfortable with." She began, walking toward them, her heels clicking against the marble floor in the silent ballroom. "Tell me, does your lovely new fiancé know about Monaco? About the promises you made me just 6 months ago?" Rebecca felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. 6 months ago, right around the time Damien had first walked into Celestial Heights and turned her world upside down. She wanted to speak, to demand answers, but her throat had closed around the questions. Damien's hand moved from her waist to her hand, gripping it tightly as if he could physically prevent her from pulling away. "Whatever you think happened," he said to Natasha, his voice dropping into a dangerous register Rebecca had never heard before. "You're mistaken. Am I?" Natasha had reached them now, close enough that Rebecca could see the fury and pain warring in her eyes. "Then explain this." She pulled out her phone, swiping through images before holding it up for everyone nearby to see. The photo showed Damien and Natasha together, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling in what looked like an intimate moment. The date stamp read 6 months and 2 weeks ago. The ballroom erupted into whispers, a wave of scandalized murmuring that crashed over Rebecca like cold water. She stared at the photo, then at Damien, searching his face for denial, for explanation, for anything that would make this nightmare make sense. But Damien was still looking at Natasha, something unspoken passing between them that excluded Rebecca entirely. That was taken out of context, he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. Was it? Natasha's smile was razor-sharp. Was the hotel room out of context too? The promises you made about trying again, about being a family? She turned her attention to Rebecca, her expression shifting to something almost pitying. He does this, you know, finds someone new and shiny to play with while keeping his options open with the old. I was you once, swept off my feet by his charm and his money and his promises of forever. Look where it got me. Rebecca found her voice at last, though it emerged smaller than she intended. Is the baby his? The question hung in the air, impossibly heavy. For the first time since Natasha's entrance, Damien looked directly at Rebecca, and what she saw in his eyes made her stomach drop. Not anger or indignation, but calculation. He was weighing his options, deciding which lie would serve him best. That hesitation told Rebecca everything she needed to know. She pulled her hand from his grip, taking a step backward. Her movement seemed to break whatever spell had frozen the ballroom. Catherine moved forward, trying to guide Natasha toward a private room. Harold Winters began making excuses to the guests, suggesting they move to the adjoining salon for dessert. But Rebecca stood rooted in place, staring at the man she had agreed to marry and realizing she didn't know him at all. Damien reached for her again. Rebecca, please, let me explain in private. This isn't what it looks like, but wasn't it? She thought about all the business trips to Monaco and London and Dubai, the nights he came home late with vague explanations about difficult negotiations, the way he had rushed their engagement, pushing for a wedding date just 3 months away. Had he been trying to lock her down before his past caught up with him? I need air, she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos around them. She turned and fled toward the terrace doors, ignoring Damien calling her name. Behind her, she heard Natasha's voice rising again, heard the click and flash of someone's phone camera capturing the moment for posterity and gossip. This was supposed to be the night that cemented her future. Instead, it felt like the night her carefully constructed fairy tale crumbled into dust. The terrace was blessedly empty, the cool night air a shock against her overheated skin. Rebecca gripped the railing, staring out at the Manhattan skyline without really seeing it. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the past 8 months. Had any of it been real? Or had she been exactly what Natasha suggested? A distraction, a placeholder, someone to fill the space while Damien figured out what he really wanted. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn, assuming it was Damien come to spin his explanations. But the voice that spoke was female and not Catherine's either. You should know he did the same thing to me. Rebecca turned to find a woman she didn't recognize, older than both her and Natasha, perhaps in her mid-40s. She wore a tasteful navy dress and carried herself with quiet dignity. I'm Elena Cortez, she continued. I was engaged to Damien 4 years ago. The wedding was 2 weeks away when I discovered he had never actually ended things with his previous girlfriend. He's a collector, you see. He likes to have options, insurance policies in case his primary plan falls through. Rebecca stared at this stranger who had somehow found her in her moment of crisis. Why are you telling me this? Because someone should have told me, Elena said simply. Because you deserve to know what kind of man you're considering spending your life with. Damien Cross is charming and generous and can make you feel like the center of the universe. But it's all performance, a carefully crafted illusion designed to get what he wants. And what he wants is control, possession, the thrill of the chase. Once he has you completely, the interest fades. Before Rebecca could respond, Damien burst onto the terrace, his eyes wild. He barely glanced at Elena before focusing entirely on Rebecca. Don't listen to her, he said urgently. She's bitter because I ended things when I realized we weren't compatible. He reached for Rebecca's hands, but she pulled away. Everything I've told you is true. I love you. Whatever happened with Natasha, it's not what it looks like. Then what is it? Rebecca heard herself ask. Explain it to me, Damien. Make it make sense. His mouth opened, then closed. She could see him sorting through possible stories, testing each one mentally to see which would be most convincing. The fact that he had to think about it, that the truth wasn't immediately available to him, told her everything. "I was weak," he finally said. "She contacted me, said she needed closure. We met for coffee in Monaco during my business trip." "Nothing happened, Rebecca. I swear nothing happened." "But the photo was staged," he interrupted desperately. "She had someone following us, waiting for a moment that could be misinterpreted. The baby isn't mine. It can't be. We haven't been together in over 2 years. She's trying to manipulate her way back into my life by using you as leverage." It was plausible, almost believable. But Rebecca kept remembering that moment of hesitation, that flash of calculation before he spoke. A man telling the truth didn't need to strategize his response. "Is that what happened with Elena too?" she asked quietly. "Was she also trying to manipulate you?" Damien's face darkened. He shot Elena a venomous look. "She's a liar," he said flatly. "A vindictive woman who couldn't handle rejection." Elena laughed sadly. "Ask yourself, Rebecca, why would I lie? What would I gain by coming here tonight and telling you this? I moved on years ago, built a good life for myself. I came because Catherine called me. Because she's worried about you and thought you deserved to hear the full truth about the man you're planning to marry." "Catherine called you?" Damien looked genuinely shocked. His sister had betrayed him, or saved Rebecca, depending on your perspective. Both, probably. Why would she do that? "Because unlike you," Elena said softly, "Catherine actually cares about people beyond how they can serve her interests. She's watched you do this before, watched you charm and seduce and discard. She doesn't want to see it happen again." The terrace door opened again and Catherine herself appeared, looking exhausted. "Security has escorted Natasha out," she informed Damien. "Harold is doing damage control with the guests, spinning it as a jealous ex trying to sabotage your happiness. Most of them will accept that story. They want to." She turned to Rebecca, her expression pained. "But you deserve better than a story. You deserve the truth." Damien's composure finally cracked. "You've turned my own sister against me," he spat at Elena. "Catherine, she's filling Rebecca's head with lies." "I never stop," Catherine interrupted tiredly. "Just stop, Damien. I've covered for you too many times. Made excuses, helped clean up your messes. But this time is different. Rebecca is different. She doesn't deserve to discover 3 years into marriage what Elena and I and everyone in your inner circle already knows. That you're incapable of real commitment. That you need the validation of multiple women wanting you, that you—" "Get out," Damien said coldly. "Both of you. Rebecca and I need to talk privately." But Rebecca was already moving toward the terrace door, toward Catherine and Elena, toward the truth that was emerging from the shadows. "I don't think we do," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "I think I need to leave. Think about everything that's happened tonight. Think about whether I can trust anything you've told me over the past 8 months. Damien's hand shot out, grabbing her arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her movement. "Rebecca, please. Don't throw away what we have because of jealous exes and family drama. I made mistakes in my past, I admit that. But you changed me. Made me want to be better, to build something real and lasting." Had she changed him? Or had he simply gotten better at the performance? Rebecca looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. "Release me, Damien." His jaw clenched, but he complied, his hand dropping away. "I'll give you space tonight," he said, his voice taking on a conciliatory tone. "We're both emotional, not thinking clearly. Tomorrow, when things have settled, we'll sit down and talk properly. I'll answer any questions you have, show you whatever proof you need. Just don't make any rash decisions tonight." It was reasonable, logical, the kind of measured response that made you question your own instincts. But as Rebecca moved past him toward the safety of Catherine and Elena, she couldn't shake the feeling that staying would mean losing herself completely in the gravity of Damien's orbit. The unraveling Rebecca spent that night in Catherine's guest room, unable to face returning to the penthouse she shared with Damien. Sleep remained elusive, her mind replaying every moment of their relationship through this new lens of doubt. How many other details had she missed? What else had he conveniently forgotten to mention about his past? The woman who stared back at her from Catherine's bathroom mirror in the gray light of dawn looked younger than her 26 years, vulnerable in a way that made Rebecca's chest tighten with a mixture of anger and shame. How had she let herself become so dependent on someone she apparently barely knew? Catherine appeared with coffee and croissants at 7, settling onto the edge of the bed with the weariness of someone who had spent the night fighting her own battles. Damien called 17 times, she reported. Her phone silent now after she had finally powered it down. He's furious with me, threatening to cut me off from family business, from my trust fund. The usual leverage he uses when people don't fall in line. Rebecca cradled the warm mug between her hands, letting the heat anchor her. I'm sorry. I never wanted to come between you and your brother. Catherine shook her head firmly. You didn't. Damien creates these situations himself, then acts surprised when there are consequences. She paused, seeming to weigh her next words. There's something else you should know. About Natasha and the baby. Rebecca's stomach clenched. What? According to hospital records that my private investigator obtained, Natasha is indeed pregnant, about 4 months along, which means conception would have occurred right around the time of Damien's Monaco trip. The trip where he claimed he only met her for coffee to provide closure. So he lied, Rebecca said flatly. The confirmation hurt less than she expected. Perhaps some part of her had already known, had been quietly cataloging inconsistencies for months without consciously acknowledging them. Catherine reached out, squeezing Rebecca's hand. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I wasn't sure. Damien is my brother, and despite everything, I love him. But I love truth more. And you deserve to build your life on truth, not convenient fictions. A soft knock interrupted them. Elena stood in the doorway, looking apologetic. I know it's early, but I thought you might have questions about what happened with me and Damien. Rebecca gestured for her to enter, suddenly desperate to understand the pattern she found herself trapped in. Tell me everything, please. Elena settled into the armchair by the window, her coffee mug balanced on one knee. I met Damien at a charity gala 5 years ago. I was 39, recently divorced, focusing on rebuilding my therapy practice. He was charming, persistent, everything you've experienced. The courtship, the whirlwind romance, the proposal that felt both inevitable and impossibly romantic. She smiled sadly at the memory. I thought I was mature enough to see through game playing, experienced enough to recognize red flags. But Damien is exceptionally skilled at making you feel like you're the exception, the one woman who finally broke through his defenses. What happened? Rebecca asked, though she suspected she already knew. Did he cheat? Elena shook her head. Not exactly. Damien's betrayals are more subtle than simple infidelity. 2 weeks before our wedding, I discovered he was still financially supporting his ex-girlfriend, the one he claimed to have ended things with 6 months before we met. Not just supporting her, but visiting her regularly, taking her to dinner, maintaining an entire parallel relationship. When I confronted him, he acted bewildered that I was upset. They were just friends, he said. She needed help getting back on her feet. Why would I abandon someone I once cared about just because I had moved on? Because you were getting married, Catherine interjected. Because your future wife deserved to know you were maintaining an intimate connection with an ex. Because secret relationships are betrayals regardless of whether they're sexual. Elena nodded. Exactly. But Damien genuinely couldn't see the problem. In his mind, he was being noble, kind, the bigger person. The fact that it violated my trust, that it made me question every business trip and late night, didn't register as relevant. His intentions were good, therefore my feelings were unreasonable. Rebecca recognized that logic. How many times had Damien dismissed her concerns with similar reasoning? When she questioned why he needed access to her email account, he explained it was for security, to protect her from potential threats. When she felt uncomfortable with how often he insisted she skip classes to accompany him on trips, he pointed out how much he valued her company, how he wanted to share his world with her. Every objection she raised was met with explanations that made her feel small and paranoid for doubting him. So you ended the engagement, Rebecca said to Elena. Did you? Or did he find a way to make you feel guilty for your perfectly reasonable boundaries? Elena's expression turned pained. He made me feel like I was throwing away something precious over a misunderstanding. Said he would end the friendship with his ex if it meant that much to me, but implied I was being controlling and insecure. We actually stayed together another month while I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. She met Rebecca's eyes directly. It was the private investigator I hired who finally showed me the truth. Damien hadn't ended anything. He had simply gotten better at hiding it. There were 2 other women he was seeing, both convinced they were his one true love, both being told I was just a business arrangement. Catherine stood abruptly, moving to the window as if she couldn't sit still hearing this. I knew about some of it, she admitted quietly. Not all the details, but enough to know Damien had a pattern. Our father was the same way, you know. Charming, charismatic, with women scattered across 3 continents. Our mother knew but stayed anyway, choosing wealth and status over self-respect. She turned back to Rebecca. I swore I would never enable that behavior in my brother. But family loyalty is complicated, especially in our world. Rebecca set down her coffee, her hands trembling slightly. I need to confront him. Get real answers, not the sanitized version he's been feeding me. Catherine and Elena exchanged worried glances. Are you sure that's wise? Elena asked gently. Confrontations with men like Damien rarely go the way you hope. They're too skilled at manipulation, at turning the table so you end up apologizing for doubting them. Maybe, Rebecca acknowledged, but I need to hear him try to explain, to see if there's any part of the man I thought I loved that's actually real, or if the whole thing was fiction. She stood, moving toward Catherine's closet, where her emergency clothes were stored. Besides, I left some things at the penthouse that I need to retrieve. My laptop, my journals, my grandmother's ring. I can't just abandon everything because I'm afraid of a difficult conversation. Then we're coming with you, Catherine decided. Both of us, he can't gaslight you as easily with witnesses. Rebecca wanted to protest, to insist she could handle this alone. But the truth was, she felt stronger with allies. These women who had survived their own versions of Damien's charm offensive and come out the other side still whole. If they could do it, perhaps she could too. The penthouse felt different when Rebecca entered it 2 hours later. The same expensive furniture, the same floor-to-ceiling windows with their million-dollar views, but now it all felt staged. A carefully constructed set designed to impress rather than comfort. Damien was waiting in the living room, dressed in casual slacks and a crisp white shirt that made him look both approachable and sophisticated. He stood when they entered, his eyes moving from Rebecca to Catherine to Elena with barely concealed fury. I told you I wanted to speak with Rebecca privately, he said coldly. This isn't a negotiation, Damien, Catherine replied, her voice steady. Rebecca has questions and she deserves honest answers with witnesses to ensure you actually provide them. Elena said nothing, simply moved to stand beside Rebecca in a gesture of silent support. Damien's jaw tightened, but he gestured toward the seating area. Fine. Let's get this over with. The words were dismissive, as if the entire situation was an annoying inconvenience rather than the potential end of their engagement. Rebecca remained standing. Is the baby Natasha's carrying yours? I don't know, Damien admitted after a pause. Possibly. We had an encounter in Monaco during my business trip. It was a mistake, Rebecca. A moment of weakness after months of abstinence while I was traveling. It meant nothing. The casual way he said it, as if infidelity could be dismissed as a minor lapse in judgment, made Rebecca's blood boil. You told me you met her for coffee to provide closure, that nothing happened. Those were your exact words. Damien shrugged, the gesture maddeningly unconcerned. I simplified the truth to avoid hurting you unnecessarily. Would you have preferred I came home and confessed every awkward encounter, every moment of human weakness? I was trying to protect you, protect me. Rebecca's voice rose despite her intention to remain calm. You lied to me, Damien, repeatedly. About your marriage, about Monaco, about God knows what else. How is that protection? It's control, manipulation, making decisions about what I'm allowed to know about my own life. His expression hardened. I make decisions about what's necessary to maintain our relationship and our future. That's what men do, Rebecca. We handle the complicated aspects so our partners can focus on being happy. Clearly I failed at that, but my intentions were good. There it was again, that infuriating logic that made her feelings secondary to his intentions. Elena was right. He genuinely couldn't see the problem with his behavior. How many other women are there? Rebecca asked, her voice steadier now that anger had burned through her initial hurt. How many others who think they have something special with you? Damien stood, moving toward her with the confident grace that had once made her heart race. Now it just made her take a step backward, putting the coffee table between them. There is no one else, Rebecca. You're the one I chose, the one I want to marry. Everything else is just noise, complications from my past that have no bearing on our future. Natasha is 4 months pregnant, Catherine interjected. That's not the past, Damien. That's a child who will be born in 5 months, a child who might be yours. A child who will definitely complicate Rebecca's future, if she chooses to stay with you. He turned on his sister with sudden venom. This is your doing. Poisoning Rebecca against me. Bringing Elena here to dredge up ancient history. Playing the concerned sister while you undermine everything I've built. Catherine didn't flinch. What you've built is a house of lies. I'm just helping Rebecca see the foundation before she commits her entire life to propping it up. Elena spoke for the first time since entering. Answer this honestly, Damien. Can you name a single relationship in your adult life where you've been faithful, transparent, and emotionally available? One woman you didn't deceive or manipulate or keep secrets from? The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca watched emotions flicker across Damien's face, anger and calculation and something that might have been genuine self-awareness before his features smoothed into the charming mask she knew so well. This is absurd, he finally said. I'm being attacked for normal human imperfection by women who can't accept that relationships require compromise and trust. Rebecca, I've given you everything, a life beyond your wildest dreams. Security, luxury, a future free from the struggles you faced before me. And you're going to throw that away because I wasn't perfect? Because I made a single mistake? It wasn't a single mistake, Rebecca said quietly. It's a pattern. Elena warned me about your need for backup plans, for keeping women on reserve in case things don't work out with your primary choice. And that's exactly what Natasha described too, isn't it? You kept her close while pursuing me, making promises to her about trying again while proposing to me. How long before I become the backup plan while you pursue someone new? Damien's hands clenched into fists at his sides. You don't understand my world, Rebecca. The pressure, the constant need to maintain alliances and manage relationships. Sometimes that requires strategic ambiguity, keeping multiple options viable until circumstances clarify. It's not personal, it's practical. Strategic ambiguity. Rebecca repeated, the phrase bitter on her tongue. Is that what you call lying to multiple women simultaneously? What you call proposing marriage while still sleeping with your ex-wife?